Imagine being able to stay calm and in control, even when the world around you feels like it's falling apart. Picture yourself handling that tough meeting, the surprise argument, or the moment when everything seems to go wrong, with composure and clarity. It might sound impossible, right? But what if I told you that staying calm in those moments isn't about avoiding life's chaos? It's about how you respond to it. The Stoics believed that true power lies not in controlling everything around us, but in mastering our inner world. They lived through wars, betrayals, personal tragedies, and yet they managed to find peace, not because they lived in a perfect world, but because they knew how to create peace within themselves. In this video, we're diving deep into 15 life-changing lessons from Stoicism that can help you do the same. These aren't just ancient ideas. They are practical tools that can transform your mind and help you stay calm no matter what's going on around you. So if you're ready to take control of your emotions and navigate life's challenges with a steady heart and clear mind, keep watching. And if this resonates with you, consider subscribing. It's more than just joining a channel. It's a step toward building the inner strength and peace that Stoicism can help you cultivate every single day. 1. It's not what happens, it's how you see it. There's a truth that most of us miss in the chaos of our everyday lives. The world itself doesn't hold the power to make us feel happy or sad, peaceful or anxious. Life itself is neutral. It's not the traffic jam that makes you angry. It's the way your mind reacts to it. It's not the difficult conversation with your boss that causes anxiety. It's the story you tell yourself about what it means. We all walk through life with a lens. Some of us see beauty and opportunity. Others see only obstacles and frustration. And guess what? The difference is entirely in how we choose to interpret what's happening around us. Marcus Aurelius knew this better than anyone. In his meditations, he said, "The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting." He was onto something profound here. When we encounter something difficult, it's not the thing itself that defines us. It's how we respond to it. Take a moment to reflect on this. If you can change the way you view something, you instantly change its impact on you. The challenge doesn't become an insurmountable wall. It becomes a stepping stone. Instead of feeling defeated, you feel empowered. That shift in perspective is where peace begins. But let's be honest, it's not easy. We've been conditioned to react to external circumstances as if they control our feelings. We get stuck in the narrative that life is happening to us, and all we can do is react. But the Stoics showed us a different way. They knew that peace and strength come not from controlling the world around us, but from mastering our own reactions. Think about it. How many times have you reacted impulsively only to regret it later? We've all been there. It could be a sharp word you said in anger, or that sinking feeling of stress when something doesn't go as planned. We let the situation pull us in, and suddenly we're at the mercy of our emotions. But what if you could take a step back, pause, and choose your response instead of being swept away by it? The Stoics would call this practice mindfulness, but not the kind that's about emptying your mind. Instead, it's about being fully present, fully aware of your thoughts, and recognizing that your emotions don't have to control you. In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to think that we need to fix everything around us to find peace. But, as Carl Jung wisely said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. This means that peace doesn't come from changing the world, but from changing how we interact with it. And that starts with accepting that we can't control everything. We can't always control what people say or what life throws at us, but we can always control how we interpret and respond to those things. This idea might seem simple, but its impact is profound. Imagine you're in a traffic jam on your way to an important meeting. Immediately your mind starts racing. I'm going to be late. This is so frustrating. What if I lose the opportunity? You can feel the anger rising in your chest, your mind building stories about how terrible the situation is. But then, pause. Ask yourself, what if you choose to see this differently? Instead of frustration, could you choose to view this as an opportunity? Maybe you use the time to listen to a podcast, clear your mind, or reflect on your goals. The traffic doesn't change, but your experience of it does. This is the essence of Stoic philosophy. It's not about avoiding challenges or pretending that everything is fine. It's about seeing life through a lens of personal responsibility. You are responsible for how you respond. And once you realize this, you unlock a profound level of freedom. No matter what happens around you, you are in control of how you experience it. Of course, this isn't something you can master overnight. It takes practice. But with each situation, you get better at seeing things for what they truly are, neutral events that only gain meaning based on your interpretation. When you start to see that, you begin to take the power back. You don't give life the ability to throw you off course. Instead, you guide yourself through it with clarity. In many ways, this aligns with the teachings of modern psychology. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, often focuses on identifying and changing negative thought patterns because what we believe shapes how we feel. If you think you're going to fail, the anxiety you feel will increase. But if you believe you can handle the challenge, your body will calm down. Your interpretation of the situation changes your emotional state. If you have the power to choose how you react, then you can always find a way to stay calm, no matter the storm. The key is to develop awareness of the narratives running through your mind and consciously choose which ones you want to believe. The moment we begin to question the stories we tell ourselves, we start to break free from emotional reactivity. These stories often come from past experiences, fears, or assumptions. They've become so ingrained that we don't even notice them running in the background. But once we start recognizing them, we have the power to challenge them. We can ask ourselves, is this story really true? More often than not, we realize it's not. It's just our mind trying to make sense of uncertainty. This practice isn't just about quieting the noise, it's about seeing things clearly. When we step back and observe without judgment, we can see that the event we're facing isn't as big or as overwhelming as it seems. The mind has a tendency to amplify problems, but in reality, most of them are smaller than we think. Take another common example. A tough conversation with a colleague or a friend. You start to feel anxious, thinking, this is going to be awkward. What if they get upset with me? Your mind paints this whole scenario, building it up as something massive. But if you take a step back, you realize it's just a conversation, an exchange of thoughts. The pressure you feel is a result of how you've framed the situation in your mind. By challenging your interpretation, you can approach the conversation with a calmer, more confident mindset. Instead of viewing it as a potential disaster, you can see it as an opportunity to communicate, to connect, or even to learn. The situation doesn't change, but your emotional experience shifts dramatically. In essence, the Stoic approach teaches us to embrace uncertainty and respond to it with purpose, rather than reacting emotionally. Life will never be free of challenges, but by changing how we interpret them, we can remain unshaken. We can act with clarity instead of being swept away by our fears or frustrations. This is true freedom, knowing that no matter what happens around you, you can stay grounded in your own responses. And this, my friends, is where the power lies. Stoicism offers us a map to navigate life's challenges, not by changing the external world, but by changing how we see it. You have the ability to adapt to obstacles, to transform them into opportunities for growth. That's the real strength. And once you realize this, you take control, not of life itself, but of your experience of it. Remember, life is neutral. It's not the traffic jam, the difficult conversation, or the unexpected change in plans that causes the pain. It's how we choose to see it. So the next time you find yourself facing a challenge, ask yourself, what story am I telling myself about this? Is it serving me? And if not, how can I rewrite it? When you start to answer these questions, you'll realize that the key to peace and calm has always been within you. This practice isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Over time, you'll get better at shifting your perspective, at controlling your reactions, and at finding the peace that comes from mastering your mind. 2. Observe the stories you tell yourself. How often do you find yourself trapped in your own mind? You know the feeling, the one where your thoughts spiral out of control, turning a minor inconvenience into a full-blown crisis. It's almost as if your mind takes a small event and within minutes creates a whole story around it. You can feel the anxiety creeping in, your heart racing, your breath shortening, all because of something that hasn't even happened yet. Most of the time, this isn't reality. It's just your mind telling you a story. And unfortunately, it's a story you start to believe. This is the first lesson that Stoicism teaches us. You are not your thoughts. We are all familiar with the stories we tell ourselves. These stories, often filled with fear, worry, and worst-case scenarios, shape our emotions, our behavior, and our reactions to situations. But the truth is, most of the anxiety we experience doesn't come from real, external danger. It comes from the stories we create in our heads. It's the narrative we build around an event that causes us to feel distressed. For example, you might be getting ready for a presentation at work. You start to think, what if I forget my lines? What if they think I'm not prepared? What if they judge me? Before you know it, these thoughts snowball into full-blown anxiety. But here's the thing, none of this has actually happened yet. Seneca understood this concept deeply. He said, "Suffering often stems from imagination, not fact." This is a powerful statement. Think about it. Most of the pain we experience comes not from what is happening in the present moment, but from the stories we create about what might happen. This is especially true when it comes to anxiety. It's not the event itself that triggers the anxiety. It's our interpretation of that event. When you begin to recognize that these mental stories are not grounded in reality, you take the first step toward freeing yourself from them. Think about the last time you felt anxious. What was going through your mind? Was it a real, tangible threat? Or was it a mental construction? A story where you imagined every possible negative outcome? That's the thing about the mind. It's constantly narrating, and often these narratives are not based in fact. In psychology, this is known as catastrophizing, the tendency to imagine the worst possible outcome. It's a natural defense mechanism, but it doesn't make it any less harmful. The more we indulge in these catastrophic thoughts, the more we strengthen the belief that danger is everywhere, even when it's not. In many ways, our minds are like a movie projector. We take real events and instead of viewing them for what they are, we project a narrative onto them. For instance, when you get a critical email, you might tell yourself, "This is a disaster. My boss is mad at me. I'm about to lose my job." But what if the truth is much simpler than that? What if your boss was just providing feedback? Or maybe the email wasn't even as harsh as you thought. The mind is an expert at creating drama, and once it starts spinning the story, it can be hard to break free from it. Here's where the Stoic practice of mindfulness comes in. It's not about denying your thoughts or suppressing your feelings. It's about observing them, recognizing them for what they are, and choosing whether to accept them or not. By developing this awareness, you can catch yourself before the mind takes you down a rabbit hole of worry. The Stoics encouraged us to examine our thoughts carefully, to reflect on whether they are grounded in reality or if they're just products of our imagination. This practice of observation is a game changer. Instead of reacting impulsively to your thoughts, you can step back, examine them objectively, and decide how to respond. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This applies perfectly to the stories we tell ourselves. The unconscious beliefs and narratives that shape our thoughts often go unnoticed. If we don't actively observe and question them, they will continue to control our behavior and emotions. When we bring these stories into the light, when we recognize them for what they truly are, we regain control. The key is to stop identifying with these stories and instead start questioning their validity. Take the example of social anxiety. Let's say you're going to a party where you don't know many people. Immediately, your mind begins to create a story. What if I say something stupid? What if I don't fit in? What if everyone judges me? These are all mental projections. In reality, no one has even said a word to you yet. But in your mind, you've already created an entire narrative of rejection and failure. This is how powerful our minds can be. It can take a simple situation and turn it into a source of immense stress, all because of the stories we tell ourselves. The truth is, these mental stories often say more about our internal fears and insecurities than they do about the actual situation. This is why the Stoics taught that we should not give power to our thoughts or emotions. They are not facts. They are simply reactions to the world around us. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, what we believe, what we think, and what we dwell on eventually shapes who we are. If we constantly tell ourselves stories of failure, rejection, and inadequacy, we begin to internalize these beliefs. But if we can change the story, we change the experience. So how do we start changing these stories? The first step is to become aware of them. This may sound simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Every time you start feeling anxious or overwhelmed, take a moment to pause and ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? Is this story based on facts, or is it just a projection of my own fears? By asking this simple question, you begin to break the cycle of anxiety. You start to take control of the narrative. Next, try to challenge the story. Is there any evidence to support it? Have you experienced something similar in the past? What was the actual outcome? Often, when we examine our stories with a critical eye, we realize that they are exaggerated or unrealistic. We may discover that the worst-case scenario we've been imagining is unlikely to happen at all. The more we do this, the more we begin to trust our ability to navigate life's challenges without succumbing to fear. This process of examining and challenging our mental stories is deeply rooted in Stoic thought. Epictetus believed that we are not disturbed by things themselves, but by our judgments about them. In other words, it's not the event that causes distress, but the meaning we assign to it. By changing the meaning we attach to our experiences, we change the emotional response they trigger. This doesn't mean we become emotionless or detached. It simply means we no longer let our emotions dictate our reality. Instead, we become the conscious creators of our experience. Jung's idea about the unconscious also ties into this. Many of the stories we tell ourselves are shaped by past experiences, memories, and fears. If we want to break free from these limiting narratives, we must first become aware of them. Only then can we begin to rewrite them. This is where personal growth happens. The more we observe our thoughts, the more we can separate ourselves from them. Instead of being caught in a mental loop of anxiety and worry, we can choose to see the situation clearly, without the emotional charge. The final step is to replace the negative story with a more empowering one. This isn't about lying to yourself or pretending that everything is perfect. It's about shifting your perspective. If you've been telling yourself, "I'm terrible at public speaking," you might replace that story with, "I'm still learning, and every experience is an opportunity to grow." Instead of fearing failure, you embrace it as part of the process. Every time you challenge the negative story and replace it with a more balanced one, you strengthen your ability to stay calm and focused in any situation. The stories we tell ourselves have the power to shape our reality. Most of the time, these stories are products of our imagination, not facts. By observing them, questioning their validity, and replacing them with more empowering narratives, we take back control of our minds. This is the heart of Stoicism, understanding that we are not slaves to our thoughts, but masters of them. When we begin to change the way we think, we change the way we experience the world. And with that change comes the peace and calm we've been searching for all along. 3. The mind can be a prison or a path to freedom. There's an idea that's been echoed through philosophy for centuries. The mind holds the key to freedom. But what does that really mean? It sounds like something we'd hear in an inspirational quote, right? But when you look closer, it's a profound truth that can change the way you approach life. Picture yourself in a difficult situation. Maybe you've been stuck in a job you don't enjoy, or maybe you're dealing with personal struggles that feel overwhelming. It's easy to look at these circumstances and feel trapped. We all have times where it feels like our external world is a cage. But here's where things get interesting. What if your true prison isn't external at all? What if it's the way your mind reacts to those circumstances? What if the real source of your suffering is not what's happening to you, but how you think about it? When you hear someone talk about freedom, it's easy to think about physical liberty, the freedom to go wherever you want, to make choices without fear of consequences. But the kind of freedom Epictetus speaks about goes much deeper. This freedom isn't about what's happening outside of you, it's about what's happening inside of you. It's the freedom to choose your thoughts, your reactions, and your perspective, regardless of the chaos around you. The Stoics believed that no matter how dire your situation might seem, you always have the freedom to choose how you respond. And that, my friends, is a form of power that can never be taken from you. True freedom comes when we fully accept who we are, without constantly fighting or resisting our own thoughts and emotions. So often, we live in constant resistance to ourselves. We're afraid of our own emotions, our fears, our weaknesses. But the real freedom comes when we can accept all of these things, recognize them for what they are, and decide how we want to respond to them. The more we resist, the more we reinforce the prison, the more we accept and understand, the more we unlock the door to freedom. Think about it. How much of your emotional suffering comes from resisting what's happening? How often do you get caught in a cycle of frustration because things aren't going the way you expected or hoped? That frustration, that anger, that anxiety, it all comes from your mind. Yes, circumstances play a role, but it's how you interpret and respond to them that defines your experience. Imagine someone cutting you off in traffic. You can choose to be enraged and frustrated, or you can choose to accept it as a part of life that's beyond your control. That's where the freedom lies, not in the world changing, but in your response to it. This doesn't mean that we suppress our emotions or pretend everything is fine when it's not. It means that we have the power to choose how we react to what's happening. The Stoics didn't preach a life of emotional suppression. Instead, they taught us to examine our emotions, to understand them, and to choose the response that best serves us in the long run. That's the internal freedom they spoke about. It's the power to control how we see the world, how we respond to it, and how we choose to feel about it. When you learn to do this, something incredible happens. The world no longer controls you. You start to realize that the power has always been inside you, waiting to be tapped. You don't need a perfect life or a stress-free environment to feel peace. You just need to shift your focus from external conditions to internal mastery. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. That's a game changer. It's not about waiting for life to be perfect. It's about learning how to be at peace, even when life is imperfect. We can apply this to every area of life. Whether you're dealing with a difficult relationship, a challenging job, or personal struggles, the Stoic approach offers a profound way to navigate those situations. You might not be able to control the people around you or the events that happen to you, but you can control how you respond. And in that response lies true freedom. Take a moment and reflect on the moments in your life where you've felt trapped. Maybe you felt stuck in a toxic relationship, or maybe you were unhappy with your career but felt powerless to make a change. The Stoics would argue that what truly trapped you wasn't the external situation, it was your perception of it. When you feel trapped, it's often because you've accepted the story your mind has created around the situation. You believe there's no way out, no way to escape the situation. But the truth is, the prison is often a construct of your own mind. Once you shift your perception, you realize that you always had the key to the door. You just had to find it. Epictetus's life was the embodiment of this principle. As a slave, he had no control over his physical circumstances, yet he understood that his inner freedom was always in his hands. He didn't let his external conditions define his experience. He knew that as long as he could control his thoughts and his reactions, he could maintain a sense of peace, even in the most difficult situations. This is the essence of Stoicism, the understanding that internal freedom matters more than external conditions. We live in a world that constantly tells us that happiness and success are tied to external factors. The perfect job, the ideal relationship, the right amount of money. But the Stoics would argue that true freedom and true happiness comes from mastering your own mind, regardless of the circumstances. It's about taking full responsibility for how you respond to life. Once you do that, the world no longer has the power to dictate your peace. In the modern world, this idea has been echoed by countless thinkers and psychologists. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This is exactly what Epictetus was teaching. Life doesn't have to be perfect for you to find peace. You just need to learn how to control your response. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are the creator of your experience. What can we take from this? First, we have to recognize that the external world will always be unpredictable. People will disappoint you. Challenges will arise. Life will throw curveballs your way. But none of that has to define your emotional state. Your ability to choose your response to life's challenges is the key to unlocking inner peace. You can't always control what happens, but you can control how you engage with it. And once you realize this, you'll find that the prison you thought you were in was never real. You were always free. The path to freedom lies within. It's not about waiting for the world to change. It's about changing how you respond to the world. And once you master that, you'll discover a freedom that no one can take away from you. 4. Most fears never come true. Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, your mind spinning with 1,000 what-ifs? Maybe you're worried about something that's coming up, like a big presentation, a tough conversation, or a decision you have to make. You start thinking about all the worst possible outcomes. You imagine everything going wrong. You feel the anxiety creep in, the pressure building in your chest, and for a moment, it feels like the worst-case scenario is almost inevitable. But here's the catch. Most of the time, those worst-case scenarios never come true. It's as if our minds take an event, stretch it to its furthest extreme, and then convince us that the disaster we imagined is not just possible, but certain. But what if you could step back from all that fear and see things for what they really are? What if you could break down your fears and realize that they're often just illusions, products of your mind, and not reality? This is where Stoicism comes in. The ancient Stoics understood that fear is often a projection, a future-based anxiety that doesn't reflect the present moment. They taught that most of our fears are born not from actual experiences, but from the stories we tell ourselves about what might happen in the future. And just like we can create these catastrophic stories in our minds, we also have the power to challenge them. Carl Jung once said, "Fear is a reaction, courage is a decision." Fear is a natural part of being human, but the Stoics remind us that we don't have to let it control us. We can decide in the face of fear to step forward anyway. But first, we need to realize that the things we fear often have no grounding in reality. Most of the things we dread, when tested against reality, are much less intimidating than they seem. Think about the last time you felt really anxious. What was it about? Was it something that was happening right now? Or was it something in the future? Something that you imagined could happen? More often than not, we get wrapped up in future-based fears. We imagine ourselves failing, or being rejected, or not measuring up. And yet, when we get to that moment, we often find that the actual experience is far less terrifying than we anticipated. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." This statement is a powerful reminder that fear is usually a story we tell ourselves and not the truth of the situation. We get so caught up in the what-ifs that we forget to focus on the here and now. Our anxiety is less about what's actually happening and more about what we think might happen. Let's take a closer look at this. Imagine you're preparing for an important meeting at work. Your mind starts to spiral. You think, what if I forget everything I want to say? What if they think I'm not good enough? What if I get asked a question I can't answer? You start picturing the worst-case scenario: embarrassment, failure, rejection. Your body reacts to this mental projection. Your heart starts racing, your palms sweat, your mind becomes clouded with stress. But here's the question: have any of these things actually happened yet? They're all future projections, not present facts. The real danger is that we begin to believe these imagined scenarios. They feel so real in the moment, and our fear makes them seem inevitable. But when we pause and look at them with a clear mind, we often find that they are far less threatening than we once thought. Here's some practical advice. Next time you feel gripped by fear, try writing down your worst-case scenario. This simple exercise can help you see just how exaggerated your fears are. Take the time to write down every possible negative outcome you can think of. Then, ask yourself, is this really likely to happen? What evidence do I have that this will come true? More often than not, you'll find that the worst-case scenario is based on pure speculation, not reality. In fact, if you take a moment to reflect, you might realize that many of your fears are based on past experiences or on things that have no bearing on the present. It's in this process of confronting your fears that you start to see them for what they really are, just thoughts, not facts. The Stoics knew that fear and anxiety often come from our tendency to imagine outcomes before they even happen. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." While this quote is about material wealth, It can also apply to our internal wealth. We are wealthy when we learn to quiet our mental noise, when we can recognize that the fear we feel is often not rooted in reality. True wealth, in the Stoic sense, comes from mastering the mind, learning to calm our fears and focus on what we can control. And the truth is, we can't control the future, but we can control our response to it. This is where freedom lies, not in avoiding fear, but in choosing how we engage with it. Imagine how freeing it would be to let go of the constant worry about what might go wrong. What if you could face your fears head-on without letting them dictate your emotional state? The Stoics taught that we should not wait for fear to disappear before we act. Instead, we should act in spite of fear. The courage to do so comes from knowing that the worst that could happen is rarely as bad as we imagine. More often than not, the reality of the situation is not nearly as dangerous as the scenarios our minds create. The fear of failure is a perfect example of how our minds create narratives that don't always align with reality. In Western psychology, it's known as the fear of failure or catastrophizing, and it can prevent us from taking necessary risks. We fear failure so much that we build elaborate stories in our minds about what will happen if we fail. But failure is rarely as catastrophic as we think. In fact, failure often brings growth, learning, and resilience. Failure isn't the end, it's a part of the process. As the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, failure is not something to fear, it's something to embrace. It's an opportunity to learn and grow, not a mark of ultimate defeat. In order to break free from the grip of fear, we must first recognize that it is a projection of our minds. It is a product of our own imagination, not reality. This recognition is key to reclaiming our power. When we learn to test our fears against reality, we begin to see how often they are based on nothing more than our own assumptions. Once we take a step back, we see that the situation we feared is much less daunting than we thought. Let's go back to that work meeting example. After you've written down your worst-case scenario, and after you've reflected on how unlikely it is to happen, you'll probably find that your fears are far less rational than you initially thought. The worst-case scenario is often an illusion, not a truth. And once you've realized that, you're free to move forward with clarity and confidence. This is the essence of Stoic practice, recognizing that most of our fears are based on the stories we tell ourselves about the future, not on actual events. When we change the way we approach fear, we free ourselves from its control. We stop letting fear dictate our actions and instead learn to act with courage, knowing that the worst that can happen is rarely as bad as we think. Ultimately, the key to overcoming fear is awareness. It's about recognizing that the mind often creates exaggerated imaginary scenarios that have no basis in reality. Once we become aware of this, we can stop letting these fears control us. We can move forward, not because we're not afraid, but because we choose to face our fears with a clear mind and a calm heart. As the Stoics believed, we can't control the world around us, but we can control how we respond to it. And when we take control of our reactions, we take control of our lives. Next time fear starts to creep in, ask yourself, what's the real danger here? Write down your worst-case scenario and reality test it. You'll likely find that the fear is just a projection, and with that realization comes the power to move past it, to act with courage, and to live your life free from the chains of imagined catastrophe. 5. Anxiety is a reaction, not a fact. Anxiety. It's something we all feel at some point, and for some of us it feels like an unwelcome companion that never leaves. It grips us in moments of uncertainty, like when we have an important meeting, or when we're waiting for test results, or even when we're just trying to get through a stressful situation. It seems to come out of nowhere, building up pressure inside us, making our minds race, our hearts beat faster, and our stomachs churn. But here's the thing, anxiety is not a fact. It's not a direct result of something happening to us. In fact, anxiety often arises from our own interpretation of events, the beliefs we hold about them. And once we understand this, we begin to realize that we have the power to change how we respond to it. The ancient Stoics, who were masters of mental discipline, understood this principle better than anyone. They taught that our emotions, particularly anxiety, are often a reaction to our beliefs, rather than a direct response to the events themselves. To the Stoics, the world is neutral. It's our perception of the world, the meaning we attach to it, that shapes our emotions. Take, for example, the fear we feel when we anticipate something. That anxiety doesn't come from the event itself, but from our belief about the event. It's not the meeting or the exam that's making us anxious. It's the belief that we might fail, the belief that we might not measure up, or the fear of judgment. Anxiety, like any emotion, is an internal reaction, shaped by how we choose to interpret and respond to life's circumstances. When we understand that anxiety doesn't come from the event itself, but from our beliefs about it, we take the first step toward reducing its grip on us. But it's not just the Stoics who point this out. Modern psychology has a similar perspective. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, one of the most effective treatments for anxiety, teaches that our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are interconnected. According to CBT, it's not the event that causes our anxiety. It's the way we think about the event. For example, if you're about to speak in front of a crowd, your thoughts might go something like, "I'm going to mess up. Everyone will laugh at me." These thoughts create anxiety, which can make the situation feel overwhelming. But when we challenge these thoughts, we often realize that they're exaggerated and unrealistic. We see that the event itself isn't nearly as dangerous as our minds have made it out to be. This understanding that emotions are reactions to our beliefs gives us a tremendous amount of power. If we can change the way we interpret a situation, we can change our emotional response to it. If we can recognize that anxiety is a reaction to our thoughts and not a reflection of reality, we gain the ability to manage it more effectively. Instead of allowing anxiety to control us, we can start to control our response to it. The Stoics didn't advocate for suppressing emotions like anxiety. They didn't teach that we should ignore or deny our feelings. Instead, they encouraged us to examine them, to observe them with awareness, and to understand their root cause. They believed that by examining our emotions, we could understand their true source and gain control over them. This is one of the most powerful lessons of Stoicism. Don't suppress your emotions, observe them. When you observe your anxiety instead of reacting to it, you begin to see it for what it really is, a mental and emotional reaction to your thoughts and beliefs, rather than an objective truth. Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." This is a crucial insight for anyone struggling with anxiety. You are not defined by your anxiety. You are not controlled by it. Just because anxiety arises doesn't mean you have to act on it or let it dictate your actions. Anxiety, like any emotion, is temporary. It's not a permanent state, and you don't have to let it define who you are or how you experience the world. The key is to choose how you respond to it. The Stoics were all about taking control of how you engage with your emotions, not letting them dictate your actions. Let's take a step back and look at a real-life example of how this works. Imagine you're in a social situation, maybe at a party or a work event, and you start feeling anxious. Your heart rate increases, Your palms get sweaty, and you feel the familiar wave of dread. But then, instead of letting that anxiety take over, you take a moment to pause and observe it. You realize that the anxiety isn't caused by the people around you or the situation. It's coming from your own beliefs. Your belief that you need to impress everyone, that you're not good enough, or that people are judging you. When you recognize this, you have the power to challenge those beliefs. You can remind yourself that it's okay not to be perfect, that not everyone is scrutinizing you, and that your worth doesn't depend on other people's opinions. This shift in perspective doesn't eliminate the anxiety entirely, but it helps you manage it. You no longer feel overwhelmed by it, because you realize it's just a reaction to your beliefs, not a reflection of the reality of the situation. This process of observation and self-reflection is exactly what the Stoics encouraged. Instead of pushing anxiety away or trying to numb it, they taught us to sit with it, examine it, and understand it. They believed that by understanding the root of our emotions, we could gain mastery over them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." This is another way of saying that how we respond to life, how we interpret the events around us, determines how we feel. If we choose to see anxiety as a natural part of life, something to examine and understand, rather than something to fear or suppress, we gain a deeper sense of peace and control. The key to managing anxiety, then, is not to avoid it, but to face it head-on. By examining the thoughts that give rise to anxiety, we can see that they often don't reflect reality. They are just stories we tell ourselves about what might happen in the future. Once we recognize this, we can reframe those stories and reduce the power anxiety has over us. The Stoics understood this well. They knew that the mind has the power to create its own suffering, but they also knew that the mind has the power to free us from it. It's not about eliminating anxiety altogether. It's about learning how to respond to it with clarity and purpose. One of the most powerful exercises that the Stoics used to deal with anxiety was called premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. This exercise involved imagining the worst-case scenario. By visualizing what could go wrong, you prepare yourself mentally for it. And in doing so, you reduce the fear of the unknown. You take the power away from the anxiety because you've already confronted it. This technique is incredibly effective because it helps you realize that even if things don't go perfectly, you'll be okay. The worst-case scenario is rarely as bad as we imagine, and often we're much more resilient than we think. The Stoics believed that it wasn't the external events that caused suffering. It was our judgments about those events. When we start to realize that anxiety is simply a reaction to our thoughts, we stop giving it so much power. Instead of reacting to it, we can choose to observe it, understand it, and shift our perspective. This is true freedom, the freedom to control our internal world, no matter what's happening externally. 6. Change is uncomfortable, but so is staying stuck. Change. We all know it's inevitable, yet so many of us fear it. The idea of stepping into the unknown, of breaking out of old habits, or facing the discomfort of growth can feel terrifying. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that if we just stay where we are, where things feel familiar, we can avoid the struggle. But here's the catch. Staying stuck can be just as uncomfortable, if not more, than embracing the change we're avoiding. It's like choosing to stay in a too tight pair of shoes because you're afraid to walk in new ones. Sure, the old ones are uncomfortable, but at least you're used to them. But think about it. Every time you resist change, every time you avoid discomfort, you trap yourself in dissatisfaction. Growth, real personal growth, requires us to step into discomfort, to challenge ourselves, and to face the fear of the unknown. This is a core teaching of Stoic philosophy. The Stoics believed that true transformation doesn't happen in a comfortable, safe space. It happens when we push ourselves outside of that space. When we face challenges head-on, when we feel the weight of discomfort, that's when we begin to evolve. Growth requires pressure. It's not about avoiding discomfort, it's about using that discomfort to fuel our progress. This might sound counterintuitive, but if we look at the lessons the Stoics left behind, we see that they understood this deeply. Epictetus taught that our struggles and discomforts aren't things to avoid, but rather opportunities to strengthen our character. He said, "Difficulties are things that show a person what they are made of." That discomfort, that feeling of pressure, is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that you are on the verge of something new, something that will push you to grow. Think about the times in your life when you felt discomfort and resistance. Maybe it was a new job, a new relationship, or even just a change in your routine. It's common to want to avoid that discomfort, to stay in the place where things feel familiar, even if that familiarity no longer serves you. But when we resist change, we often end up in a state of dissatisfaction, where we feel like we're not moving forward. The idea of staying comfortable might seem appealing in the short term, but in the long run, it leads to frustration and stagnation. You're not evolving, you're staying the same. And deep down, that's a kind of dissatisfaction that grows louder with time. But here's the thing, becoming who you truly are means stepping into discomfort. It means challenging the parts of yourself that are afraid to change, afraid to grow, and afraid to embrace new possibilities. If you never leave your comfort zone, you'll never know the potential you have for growth. You'll never know what you're truly capable of because you'll be stuck in the same place, playing it safe. Jung's quote isn't just about becoming a better version of yourself. It's about confronting those uncomfortable parts of you that need to evolve in order to unlock the person you're meant to be. This is what the Stoics recognized centuries ago. Change was uncomfortable for them too, but they understood that life is inherently full of challenges, and the key to living a fulfilled life wasn't in avoiding discomfort, but in embracing it. Seneca believed that a gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. This quote encapsulates the Stoic approach to life's difficulties. The friction, the discomfort, the struggles, they're not something to shy away from. They're part of the process. Just like a gem, you cannot polish yourself without experiencing a little pressure. You cannot grow without facing discomfort. And yet, so many of us try to avoid it, thinking it's something we should run from. The Stoics would argue that we shouldn't avoid discomfort at all, but rather lean into it, knowing that it is through that discomfort that we grow. It's easy to think of discomfort as something bad, something to be feared. But the Stoics taught that discomfort is a necessary part of life. If we try to avoid it, we trap ourselves in mediocrity. We stop learning. We stop expanding. We stop growing. Imagine if you never pushed yourself outside your comfort zone. You might avoid the pain of failure, but you also avoid the growth that comes with it. You might feel a temporary sense of security, but you miss out on the deeper satisfaction that comes from overcoming challenges. The obstacles in our path are often the things that push us forward. The discomfort we feel when faced with a challenge isn't something to fear. It's the very thing that propels us to the next level. The Stoics didn't just accept discomfort. They sought it out because they understood that only through challenges can we truly grow. They didn't see obstacles as something that hindered their progress. Instead, they saw them as opportunities to advance. This is a powerful mindset shift that can change everything about how we approach discomfort in our own lives. There's a profound lesson in that shift. If we look at discomfort as something to avoid, we keep ourselves trapped. We keep ourselves in a state of dissatisfaction because we're unwilling to face the hard stuff. We resist, we procrastinate, and we stay stuck. But if we start to see discomfort as an opportunity for growth, as the very thing that will push us forward, we begin to change how we experience it. We no longer avoid it. We welcome it. This doesn't mean that discomfort is easy or pleasant, it's still challenging. But the way we approach it makes all the difference. Instead of feeling defeated, we feel empowered because we know that growth comes from the pressure, the challenge, the discomfort. Psychologists have a similar concept in modern-day therapy, especially in something called exposure therapy. This is a process where people confront their fears head-on, little by little, instead of avoiding them. Over time, they learn that the things they fear don't hold the same power over them once they face them. This is the core of personal growth. The more we face discomfort, the more we break down the walls that keep us trapped in our own dissatisfaction. We don't get better by avoiding the tough stuff. We get better by facing it, learning from it, and moving through it. This idea of discomfort leading to growth also touches on the concept of delayed gratification, a concept that's central to both Stoic philosophy and modern psychology. The Stoics believed in long-term discipline, in doing what's hard now for the sake of a better future. The modern psychological perspective also emphasizes that those who can tolerate short-term discomfort are often more successful and satisfied in the long run. Whether it's the pain of training for a marathon or the discomfort of studying for a difficult exam, it's the ability to endure that discomfort and focus on the long-term reward that sets people apart. When you realize that discomfort is just part of the journey, it becomes much easier to face. You understand that growth, success, and fulfillment don't come from avoiding life's challenges. They come from embracing them. Change is uncomfortable, yes, but staying stuck in dissatisfaction is even worse. The choice is yours. Do you stay in the familiar, where nothing changes, but you're constantly unhappy? Or do you face the discomfort, knowing that it's the path to something better, something more meaningful? The Stoics chose to embrace discomfort because they knew it was the only way to truly grow. The real secret to personal growth is this: embrace discomfort. Stop seeing it as a roadblock and start seeing it as the path. When you feel uncomfortable, know that you are being shaped, just like a sculptor chiseling away at a block of marble. You won't always enjoy the process, but you'll come out stronger, clearer, and more resilient on the other side. Change is hard, yes, but staying stuck, that's even harder. 7. Control what you can. Let go of the rest. Have you ever found yourself spinning your wheels over something you can't control? It's a familiar feeling. Maybe you're stuck in traffic, late for a meeting, or maybe you're worried about someone's opinion of you. The frustration builds and the stress starts to mount. The more you focus on what's happening outside of your control, the more powerless you feel. In these moments, it's easy to lose sight of something very simple, yet incredibly powerful. You can't control everything, and that's okay. In fact, once you learn to embrace this, a profound sense of freedom opens up to you. The secret to peace, to reducing stress, to living a more content life lies in understanding and practicing what the Stoics taught. Control what you can and let go of the rest. Think about it for a second. How much time do you spend worrying about things that are completely out of your control? Maybe you're thinking about how your boss will react to your idea, or whether your friend will approve of the plans you've made. What if you could let go of the need to control these things? What if you could focus solely on your own thoughts and actions and trust that the rest will fall into place? This is the essence of the dichotomy of control. It's about recognizing that while you can control how you think, what you do, and how you respond, you can't control other people or their reactions. And most importantly, you don't need to. The freedom comes in the acceptance of this. Your choices and your responses define who you are, not the thoughts you dwell on or the outcomes you can't control. When you put energy into controlling your own behavior, your decisions, and your attitude, you empower yourself. But when you try to control everything outside of your influence, you give your power away. You allow circumstances, other people's opinions, and things you cannot change to dictate how you feel. This isn't the path to peace. In fact, it leads to constant stress, disappointment, and burnout. Take the example of getting stuck in traffic. We've all been there, rushing to an important appointment, and then there it is. A never-ending line of cars, slowing down to a crawl. Immediately, frustration kicks in. You can feel your blood pressure rising. Thoughts race through your mind. I'm going to be late. I'm never going to make it. Why does this always happen to me? But here's the thing. You can't control traffic. It's outside your sphere of influence. So, the question becomes, why invest your energy in something you can't control? The Stoics would suggest that instead of railing against traffic, you redirect your energy towards something you can control, your attitude. You can control how you respond. You can decide to use the time to listen to a podcast, reflect on the day, or practice some deep breathing. Instead of letting the traffic control your emotional state, you take charge of your own reactions. This doesn't mean you'll never feel frustrated. It simply means you recognize that your peace of mind is not worth giving away to something you have no power over. Jung's perspective aligns with this idea. He believed that we often get stuck in the cycle of trying to control what we can't. By focusing on the things that are beyond us, like other people's judgments or future outcomes, we rob ourselves of the chance to grow and find peace in the present. In his words, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and who you truly are isn't defined by the uncontrollable aspects of life. It's defined by your choices, your actions, and how you choose to perceive the world. By focusing on the things you can control, you're free to become the person you want to be. This is one of the great gifts Stoicism offers, the power of focus. It teaches you to direct your energy into the things that matter, the things you have control over. Once you do that, you'll notice that your stress levels drop. You'll feel more centered, more at peace with yourself. Why? Because you're no longer chasing after things that are outside of your grasp. You've given up the illusion that you can control everything. Instead, you focus on shaping your own mind, your own actions, and your own responses. The rest will follow, or it won't. Either way, it doesn't affect your inner peace. Imagine this in action. You have a big meeting coming up, and you're nervous about how it will go. Your mind races with thoughts of potential failure. What if they don't like my ideas? What if they criticize me? What if I can't answer their questions? These are all fears based on outcomes that haven't happened yet. The reality is, you can't control how others will respond, but you can control how you prepare, how you present yourself, and how you engage in the conversation. You can focus on what's in your hands, your thoughts, your actions, your ability to stay calm. By focusing on what you can control, you stop feeding your anxiety with thoughts of what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. You're no longer controlled by fear of what might happen. You're free to take action, knowing that whatever the outcome, you've done what you could. In life, we're constantly faced with the choice of focusing on what's in our control versus what's out of our control. It's easy to get caught up in worrying about the future, about other people's opinions, about outcomes we can't predict. But here's the truth. None of that is yours to manage. Let go of it. Focus on what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, your choices. When you do that, you reclaim your power. You take control of your experience, and you stop letting life's unpredictability determine your emotional state. When we stop wanting control over things we cannot influence, we free ourselves from the burden of unrealistic expectations. Instead of constantly striving for things that are out of our reach, we learn to find contentment in the things we can control. This is a deeply liberating practice. It shifts your focus from external events to internal mastery. And when you shift your focus like that, you shift your entire experience of life. The Stoics knew this, and it's why they advocated for a life that was centered on cultivating self-control, not on chasing after external things. They knew that if you can control your reactions and your actions, you will always have peace, no matter what happens around you. What's yours to manage is your own mind, your own response, your own actions. That's where your true power lies. Let go of the rest, and you'll find yourself living a life of greater peace and freedom. The Stoics weren't advocating for passivity. They were advocating for inner strength, strength that comes from knowing where to focus your energy, strength that comes from accepting what you can't control and embracing the power of focusing on what you can. 8. Action is the antidote to doubt. Have you ever found yourself caught in the endless loop of overthinking? We've all been there. You've got a goal, a project, or a task in mind, but the more you think about it, the more doubts start to creep in. What if I fail? What if it's not good enough? What if others judge me? These thoughts go around and around, causing hesitation, frustration, and often complete inaction. It's a familiar pattern. You keep thinking, keep doubting, but never take the first step. Here's the catch, though. The longer you wait, the bigger those doubts become. You start to feel stuck, helpless, and uncertain of what to do next. But what if the key to overcoming doubt isn't thinking about it more, but actually doing something about it? The antidote to doubt isn't more thoughts, it's action. This is a core principle in Stoic philosophy. The Stoics believed that our doubts and insecurities often stem from our inaction. When we think too much and do too little, our minds spiral into uncertainty. It's easy to let doubt take over when we're not actively engaged in moving forward. Epictetus famously said, "Do not wait. The time will never be just right. Start where you stand and work with whatever tools you may have at your command." This is the essence of Stoic action. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait for your doubts to magically disappear. Just take the next step, no matter how small. It's through this act of doing that we build self-trust and dispel doubt. The truth is, self-trust isn't built through thinking or planning. It's built through doing. Think about it. Every time you act, every time you take a step toward your goal, you reinforce your own belief in yourself. It's like lifting weights at the gym. You don't get stronger by simply reading about how to lift weights. You get stronger by actually lifting them. The same goes for your confidence. You don't become confident by thinking about it or analyzing it. You become confident by taking action. It's not your thoughts that define you, it's your actions. And when you act, you create a sense of trust in yourself that no amount of overthinking can provide. Now, let's address something that most of us struggle with: procrastination. It's the enemy of progress. We all do it. We have a task ahead of us, and instead of diving in, we delay, we put it off, and we wait for the right moment. But that right moment never comes, and the longer we procrastinate, the more our doubts grow. We think, "I'm not ready," or "I don't have the right tools," or "I might fail." The longer we stay stuck in those thoughts, the more we convince ourselves that we're incapable of moving forward. But procrastination doesn't protect us from failure. It actually feeds our insecurity. The longer we avoid taking action, the more we reinforce the idea that we're not capable of handling the task at hand. But the Stoics knew better. They understood that the best way to conquer insecurity is to take small, consistent actions. The more you act, the more you build trust in yourself, and the more your doubts start to fade. Think about the last time you procrastinated on something. Maybe it was a work project, a conversation you needed to have, or a personal goal you've been putting off. How did it feel? Most likely, the longer you put it off, the more your anxiety increased. The doubts grew. Your mind started spinning with all the ways it could go wrong. But then, once you finally took the first step, however small it was, you probably felt a huge weight lift off your shoulders. It wasn't as hard as you thought, right? And after a few more steps, you probably found that the task wasn't as overwhelming as it seemed. This is the magic of action. Every time you take action, no matter how small, you create momentum. And that momentum builds self-trust. Jung's idea of becoming who you choose to be speaks directly to this process. Every action you take, however small, is a step toward the person you want to become. If you want to become someone who trusts themselves, you need to show up for yourself. You need to act. And when you act, you prove to yourself that you can handle whatever comes your way. This is how you build self-trust. Not by waiting for doubts to disappear, but by doing the very thing that scares you. The more you do, the less room there is for doubt. The Stoics also knew that the pursuit of perfection often holds us back. We fear that what we do won't be good enough, so we hesitate to take the first step. But this is another trap. Perfectionism is just another form of procrastination. It's the voice in your head telling you to wait until you're completely ready, until you have all the answers, until everything aligns perfectly. But the Stoics would argue that waiting for perfection is an illusion. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Waiting for the perfect moment means wasting the time you have. The time to act is now, and the best way to overcome perfectionism is to focus on progress, not perfection. When you act, you're moving forward, even if it's just a small step. And let's be honest, we all have goals we're working toward, whether it's finishing a big project, losing weight, improving our relationships, or building new habits. But here's the thing, those big goals can be intimidating. It's easy to look at the end result and feel overwhelmed. The Stoics, however, taught us that success isn't about big, dramatic actions. It's about small, consistent efforts over time. The key to mastering yourself is in the small daily actions you take, not in the grand gestures. By focusing on doing what you can today, you build momentum that propels you toward your larger goals. It's in the consistency of action that you prove to yourself that you're capable. This is the power of focusing on the process, not just the outcome. When we focus solely on the end result, the task can seem insurmountable. But when we focus on what we can do today, on the small actions we can take right now, the task becomes more manageable. Instead of letting the fear of failure paralyze us, we break it down into bite-sized pieces. Each small step you take builds on the one before it, and with each step, your confidence and self-trust grow. The Stoics understood this intimately. They didn't wait for life to be easy or for the perfect conditions to act. They knew that the most important thing was to take action, no matter how small, because every action was a step toward greater self-mastery. The longer we put things off, the more we feed our doubts and insecurities. But action, no matter how small, dissolves those doubts. It builds momentum and creates progress. Every time you take action, you silence the voice of fear and hesitation. You show yourself that you are capable, that you can handle challenges, that you can trust yourself. And with each step, you move closer to becoming the person you want to be. The next time doubt creeps in, The next time procrastination tries to take hold, remember, action is the antidote. Don't wait for everything to be perfect. Don't wait for the fear to go away. Take the first step, no matter how small, and trust that the momentum will carry you forward. As the Stoics taught, it's not about waiting for the right moment, it's about making this moment the right one by choosing to act. 9. You are what you repeatedly do. Ever stop to think about how you see yourself? You know, the way you identify, what you believe you're capable of, who you are at your core. Many of us build our sense of identity around what we hope to do, what we dream of accomplishing, or the promises we make to ourselves about the future. It's all too easy to say, I'm going to start working out tomorrow, or I'll be more patient starting next week. But here's the kicker. Identity isn't formed by promises. It's formed by patterns of behavior. The person you believe yourself to be isn't a reflection of what you plan to do or what you hope for. It's based on what you actually do. Our habits shape us, not our intentions. And if you want to become someone who trusts themselves, someone who's strong and confident, you need to start showing up consistently. Because, as Aristotle famously said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. This is a powerful concept, the idea that you are what you do, not what you say you'll do. It's so simple, yet it's often overlooked. Think about it for a second. How many times have you made a promise to yourself, whether it was about eating healthier, working harder, or being more present with your family? We all do it, right? We all set these intentions, and for a moment it feels good. It feels like we're on the right track. But here's the harsh truth. Your promises don't define you. Your actions do. Your consistency, your daily choices, and your patterns of behavior are what shape who you are. But here's the catch. Becoming who you truly are doesn't happen overnight. It's the product of consistent actions, small steps taken every day that align with who you want to be. If you want to be a confident person, you can't simply wait for confidence to appear. You have to take action again and again, and each time you follow through, you strengthen your identity. Each time you stick to your word, even when it's hard, you reinforce the person you want to become. Confidence doesn't come from empty promises. It comes from doing the thing you said you would do, even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. We've all experienced that feeling of self-doubt at some point. It might come after a mistake, a failure, or just a moment of weakness when you didn't follow through. But here's the thing. Self-doubt is often a result of not having a solid track record of action. If you say you're going to do something and then don't follow through, your mind starts to doubt your own ability. You start to believe that you can't trust yourself. But when you build small, consistent habits, you prove to yourself that you can be trusted. You show yourself that you're capable of doing what you say you will do. Every time you follow through, you build confidence in your own ability. It's like stacking small bricks that over time create a solid foundation of trust. The Stoics knew that the path to self-mastery and inner peace wasn't through empty promises or big, grand gestures. It was through small, consistent actions that aligned with their values. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This simple advice is so powerful. Instead of spending time talking about what you should be or what you could do, just do it. If you want to be disciplined, be disciplined. If you want to be kind, be kind. It's in your actions, not your words, that your identity is shaped. This idea that you are what you do is critical for building real, lasting confidence. Confidence isn't a feeling, it's a result of action. You can't feel confident just by wishing for it. But when you act consistently in ways that align with your values, confidence becomes a natural byproduct. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And the more you act in alignment with your goals, the more you begin to trust yourself. Trust is built through consistency. Every time you keep your promises, you reinforce the idea that you're capable. Every time you show up, you build a habit of success. Think about someone you admire. Maybe it's a successful entrepreneur, a well-known athlete, or someone in your personal life who exudes confidence and self-assurance. The truth is, they didn't get to where they are by making big promises. They got there by consistently showing up. They developed the habits, the discipline, and the mindset that allowed them to achieve success. And you can do the same. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment or hoping for a magical transformation. It's about taking small actions every day, consistently. It's about being true to your word and aligning your behavior with your values. This ties into the idea of personal growth. Growth isn't a destination, it's a journey, and it's shaped by the daily choices we make. Every time you make a choice that reflects who you want to be, you grow. Every time you take a step, no matter how small, in the direction of your goals, you move closer to becoming the person you aspire to be. The Stoics understood this well. They knew that the journey of self-mastery is built through consistent effort. It's about showing up every day, even when it's hard, and continuing to make the choices that align with your higher self. In our modern world, it's easy to get distracted by shiny objects, by the next big thing, the next opportunity, or the next goal. We often want to skip the hard work and go straight to the reward. But the Stoics remind us that real growth comes from doing the work, not just dreaming about it. They knew that greatness is built through small, consistent actions over time. As Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself. You are the master of your own actions. If you can control what you do and align it with your values, you can master your life." The way you show up in small moments defines who you become in the big moments. This process of becoming who you want to be doesn't happen through wishful thinking or even positive affirmations alone. It happens through consistent, deliberate action. If you want to be someone who exercises discipline, start by doing one disciplined thing every day. If you want to be someone who is confident, act in ways that reinforce your belief in yourself. Trust is built through action, and identity is shaped by behavior, not by promises or intentions. 10th, stop complaining. It trains you to be powerless. Have you ever caught yourself complaining about something? Maybe a bad situation, a person who's frustrating you, or a setback you're facing, and found that for a moment it feels kind of good? It's a strange thing, isn't it? Venting can provide a sense of release, like you're getting rid of the frustration that's been building up inside you. But here's the catch. Complaining, as tempting as it can be in the short term, doesn't actually solve anything. In fact, it often makes things worse. Complaining doesn't just keep you stuck in the problem, it also trains your mind to feel powerless. Instead of finding a solution or taking action, complaining becomes a habit. And over time, you become more accustomed to feeling like a victim of circumstances. And the more you complain, the harder it is to break free from that mental cycle of helplessness. This isn't just a minor issue, it's something that can really impact your life and your ability to move forward. It's easy to get caught in the trap of venting when things go wrong, especially when life feels overwhelming or unfair. But what the Stoics teach us is that complaining doesn't lead to progress. It doesn't help us grow or overcome challenges. Instead, it keeps us stuck in a state of reaction where we're constantly letting external circumstances dictate how we feel and how we act. The Stoics, particularly Marcus Aurelius, understood that our power comes not from the external events that happen to us, but from how we choose to respond to those events. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In other words, complaining about things that are out of our control only drains our energy and focus and keeps us from finding a productive response. Take a moment to think about the last time you complained about something. Maybe it was about a traffic jam, a difficult conversation, or a mistake you made at work. How did that complaining make you feel? For a moment, it might have felt like a relief, like you were able to express your frustration and let it out. But after a little while, what happens? That feeling of relief fades, and you're left with the same problem, sometimes even amplified. When we complain, we give our energy to the problem, not the solution. We focus on how unfair things are or how difficult life is, but we don't actually take any steps to change the situation. And the longer we stay in that place of complaining, the harder it becomes to break free from it. It's like quicksand. Once you start complaining, it's easy to keep sinking into it. This is where the Stoics offer a profound lesson. The Stoics didn't ignore challenges or pretend that life was always easy, but they taught that complaining was a form of weakness because it only reinforces the idea that we are powerless in the face of adversity. Instead of complaining, the Stoics advocated for what they called responsibility. It's the idea that we can choose how to respond to anything life throws at us. No matter what happens, we always have a choice. We can react or we can respond. And the key to overcoming powerlessness is shifting from reaction to response. Carl Jung believed that we have the power to shape our own lives by choosing how we respond to the events that happen to us. This is exactly what the Stoics understood. Our power lies in our ability to choose how we respond to life, not in the events themselves. When you stop complaining, you shift from being a passive observer of your life to being an active participant. Complaining locks you into a victim mentality, where everything that happens to you is out of your control. But when you stop complaining, you take back control. You stop focusing on how unfair things are and start thinking about what you can do to make things better. It's a small but powerful shift in mindset. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask yourself, "What can I do about this?" This simple change in perspective can make all the difference. When you focus on solutions rather than problems, you empower yourself to take action and make progress. The Stoics didn't spend their time lamenting over things they couldn't control. They focused their energy on their thoughts, their actions, and their responses, knowing that this was where their true power lay. Think about it this way. Imagine you're stuck in traffic. You could easily start complaining. You could gripe about how late you are, how frustrating it is, and how unfair the situation is. For a moment, you might feel a little better, but ultimately, it changes nothing. You're still stuck in traffic, and your stress levels are higher. On the other hand, what if, instead of complaining, you took a deep breath and asked yourself, "What can I do with this time?" Maybe you could listen to an audiobook, catch up on a podcast, or simply practice some mindfulness. You could choose to turn the situation into an opportunity rather than letting it drain your energy. The more you choose to respond this way, the more control you have over your emotions and your experience. This is exactly what the Stoics meant when they said that external events don't have the power to harm you, only your reactions do. It's not the events themselves that determine your happiness or peace of mind. It's your response to those events. When you choose to respond instead of react, you regain control. Complaining is a reaction. It's an automatic response to life's challenges that doesn't serve you. But choosing a response is a conscious decision to take control of the situation, to see it for what it is, and to find a way to navigate it productively. In psychology, there's a concept called learned helplessness. This happens when we experience repeated failures or setbacks, and over time, we start to believe that we have no control over our situation. We start to feel powerless, and this belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Complaining feeds into this mindset. When you complain, you reinforce the idea that you're helpless, that you have no agency over your life. But when you stop complaining, you start to shift your mindset from one of helplessness to one of empowerment. You start to see that no matter what life throws at you, there is always something you can do in response. You don't have to be a victim of your circumstances. You can choose to act. This is where the real strength lies. True power comes from within, from the ability to respond with clarity and purpose, rather than react out of frustration or helplessness. The Stoics knew this. They knew that life wasn't always going to be easy. They knew that adversity, pain, and hardship were inevitable. But they also knew that their response to these challenges was within their control. And that, my friends, is where true freedom comes from. Not from trying to control everything around you, but from choosing how you respond. Shift your focus from reaction to response. Stop giving away your power to things you can't control. Remember, complaining might feel good in the short term, but it reinforces helplessness. By choosing to respond with clarity, calm, and action, you regain control of your life. And that's the key to moving forward, to becoming stronger, and to finding peace amidst life's inevitable challenges. You don't need to control everything, you just need to control how you respond, and that's where your true power lies. 11. No one's coming. Be your own rescue. In life, we often find ourselves waiting for the right moment, waiting for someone to step in and solve our problems, waiting for change to come from outside forces. But here's the truth: no one's coming. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that some external force, some magical intervention will come and rescue us from our struggles. Maybe it's the hope that a new job, a new relationship, or even a lucky break will somehow make everything better. But in reality, true change, true transformation can only come from within. If you're waiting for someone or something to come and fix your life, you're going to be waiting forever. The responsibility for change, for growth, for taking control of your life lies with you. You are the one who must act, and it's time to stop waiting for someone else to do it for you. This idea of taking full responsibility for our own lives is at the core of Stoic philosophy. The Stoics believed that while we cannot control everything that happens to us, we can always control how we respond. While we can't always control external events, we always have the power to choose our response. So, if you're waiting for someone else to step in and rescue you, you're missing the point. You have everything you need within you to make the changes you want to see in your life. The key is to stop waiting for the perfect moment or the right person and start taking action yourself. Becoming the person you want to be, the person who is strong, capable, and resilient, isn't about waiting for someone to help you get there. It's about taking the steps yourself. Change doesn't happen in a vacuum. It requires action. You have to do the work. You have to show up for yourself, even when it's hard. You are the one who is responsible for your life. You are the one who gets to decide what kind of person you want to become. And that begins with taking responsibility for your own actions. The thing about waiting for someone to come and save us is that it's disempowering. It keeps us stuck in a passive mindset, where we think we're at the mercy of circumstances. But when you take control, when you decide to be your own rescue, you change your entire relationship with life. Suddenly, you're not just reacting to whatever life throws at you. You're actively shaping your life, making choices that align with your values and goals. You're not waiting for the world to be different. You're taking action to make the world around you different. Imagine for a moment that you're stuck in a difficult situation. Maybe it's a challenging work project, a strained relationship, or a personal struggle. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, if only things were different, if only someone would step in and help, everything would be better. But what if, instead of waiting for someone else to fix it, you took responsibility? What if you asked yourself, what can I do today to improve this situation? Even if the problem is complex, even if you can't fix everything at once, you can always take one small step toward making things better. It's in those small actions that change begins to happen. And as you take action, you begin to feel more in control. You start to feel empowered because you're no longer waiting for someone else to rescue you. You are your own rescue. The Stoics often spoke about the power of choosing how we respond to difficulties. They didn't believe in waiting for life to become easy. Instead, they embraced the challenges, knowing that it's through facing them that we grow stronger. It's in the toughest moments that you discover who you truly are and what you're capable of. It's easy to think that life would be better if things were different, but the Stoics understood that life's challenges aren't roadblocks. They're opportunities to build resilience, wisdom, and strength. When you choose to take responsibility for your own life and be your own rescue, you stop giving away your power to others or to external circumstances. You realize that you don't need anyone else to come to your aid because you have the ability to handle things on your own. It's not always easy and it's not always comfortable, but it's incredibly empowering. As you start to take action, as you begin to solve problems on your own, you build self-trust. You prove to yourself that you can handle whatever comes your way. You no longer rely on others to fix your problems. You become the person who fixes them. Jung's philosophy of self-realization aligns perfectly with the Stoic mindset. Jung believed that the process of becoming who you truly are requires taking full responsibility for your own life. He wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." What Jung is saying here is that real transformation happens when we stop looking outside ourselves for answers and start looking within. It's when we take control of our own responses and actions that we begin to truly awaken to our potential. And just like the Stoics, Jung understood that this process requires action. You don't become who you truly are by waiting for life to give you a break. You become who you truly are by taking responsibility, facing your challenges head-on, and acting in alignment with your values. There's a powerful truth in this. If you wait for someone else to come and fix your problems, you'll spend your whole life waiting. But if you choose to be your own rescue, you take back control of your life. You stop being a passive observer of your circumstances and start being an active participant in shaping your future. Every time you take action, you affirm that you are in charge of your life. You build confidence, you build resilience, you build strength, and most importantly, you build trust in yourself. In the end, it's all about taking responsibility. You are the one who must act. You are the one who must make the choice to move forward, no matter what obstacles stand in your way. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than most. He didn't wait for life to be perfect, and he didn't wait for someone else to make things right. He took responsibility for his own thoughts, his own actions, and his own life, and that's why he was able to maintain peace and clarity in the face of immense challenges. He knew that the key to a meaningful life isn't in waiting for rescue, it's in becoming your own rescue. You have everything you need within you to make the changes you want to see. You are your own rescue. Take action. Do it anyway. Because when you do, you'll realize that the obstacles you face are just opportunities for growth. And through those challenges, you will find the strength and resilience you need to shape the life you desire. 12. Trust is earned, especially from yourself. You've probably heard the phrase, trust is earned, and while it's often used in the context of relationships with others, have you ever stopped to think about how it applies to your relationship with yourself? How often do you truly trust yourself to follow through? It's easy to promise ourselves that we'll get things done, that we'll be disciplined, or that we'll make changes in our lives. But how many times have you found yourself letting those promises slip away and then feeling disappointed in your own inability to keep them? That disappointment, that lingering feeling of inadequacy, is the result of not following through with what you said you would do. Self-trust isn't something that magically appears. It's earned, built over time, through the simple act of doing what you said you would do. Every time you follow through on a commitment, no matter how small, you're laying the foundation for inner strength and self-respect. If you want to be someone who can trust themselves, you need to start by keeping the promises you make to yourself. It doesn't matter if it's a big goal or a small one. Every promise kept is a step toward becoming a person who is worthy of their own trust. Every time you show up for yourself, even when it's hard, you reinforce your character and build a deeper level of respect for who you are. Self-respect doesn't come from what we say or intend to do. It comes from what we actually do. In Stoic philosophy, this is central to the practice of virtue, living in accordance with reason, wisdom, and discipline. Every time you follow through on a commitment, even if it's just getting out of bed early, eating healthier for the day, or finishing a task you've been putting off, you prove to yourself that you are capable. You reinforce your own sense of self-trust and respect. It's a daily process, not a one-time event. We all want to be the kind of person who gets things done, who achieves their goals, and who feels a deep sense of satisfaction with their progress. But the gap between wanting to be that person and actually being that person lies in follow-through. If you don't follow through on your promises, even the small ones, it's hard to trust yourself. Carl Jung spoke to this truth when he said, "You are what you do, not what you think you can do." Jung understood that our self-identity isn't built on the potential we see in ourselves, but on the actions we take. We don't earn self-respect by thinking about what we could do or wishing we could change. We earn it by taking action, by following through, and by proving to ourselves that we can rely on our own word. When you keep a promise, no matter how small, it's like adding a brick to a foundation of strength and trust. And over time, that foundation becomes unshakable. Think about it. When you keep a promise to yourself, you send a powerful message to your mind. You're saying, "I can count on myself." And with each promise you keep, that message becomes stronger. But when you break a promise to yourself, even the smallest one, you send the opposite message. "I'm not reliable. I can't trust myself." It's in the little things, the daily actions, that we build our sense of integrity and trust. It's easy to think that big dramatic actions are what define us, but in reality, it's the small, consistent steps that create the strongest foundation. Now, let's be clear, following through doesn't mean being perfect. We all slip up from time to time. We all break a promise or fall short of our goals. But the key is to keep going. The Stoics understood that life is full of setbacks, challenges, and obstacles. What matters is how we respond. Do we let our failures define us, or do we use them as opportunities to learn and grow? Every time you get back on track after falling off, you reinforce your ability to follow through. You prove that you're resilient, that you can adapt, and that you can trust yourself to keep going. It's not about being perfect, but about consistently making the effort to do what you said you would do. Every time you get up and try again, you're earning your own trust. Building self-trust through follow-through is also about managing expectations. Often, we set ourselves up for failure by making unrealistic promises. Maybe you tell yourself you're going to completely overhaul your life in a week, or that you'll be perfect in every way, every day. But the Stoics didn't advocate for perfection. They advocated for progress. In fact, they believed that it's more important to make steady, consistent improvements than to aim for unattainable perfection. As Seneca put it, "No man was ever wise by chance. Wisdom, self-respect, and inner strength are the results of deliberate practice, of showing up every day and doing the hard work, one small step at a time." So, instead of overwhelming yourself with impossible goals, focus on small, achievable actions. Start with something simple, something you know you can do, and follow through. Over time, this will build the trust and self-respect you need to tackle bigger challenges. When we look at someone we admire, someone who seems to have their life together, someone who exudes confidence, it's easy to assume that they're just naturally gifted or that they have something we don't. But in reality, the difference between them and someone who feels stuck often comes down to one thing: follow through. Successful people, whether in business, relationships, or personal development, don't get where they are by talking about what they want to do. They get there by doing the work, day after day, no matter how small or insignificant the task might seem at the time. Their confidence isn't based on a few big wins. It's built from a lifetime of small actions that add up. As you start following through on your promises, you'll notice that your self-respect grows. You'll start to trust yourself more, and with that trust comes confidence. The power of self-respect is immeasurable. It's the foundation upon which all other forms of success are built. Without self-respect, it's hard to trust your own decisions or feel good about your actions. But when you follow through on your commitments, even the small ones, you create a solid base for personal growth and self-confidence. Each small act of follow-through is like a brick being laid in a foundation that will support you through life's challenges. And over time, that foundation becomes so strong that nothing can shake it. You will become a person who is reliable, not only to others, but to yourself. The more you follow through, the more you'll trust yourself. And as your self-trust grows, so too will your ability to handle whatever life throws at you. The Stoics knew this better than anyone. The key to a meaningful, resilient life lies in the daily practice of integrity, discipline, and follow-through. It's not about being perfect, it's about being consistent. And in that consistency, you'll find the strength, wisdom, and self-respect that will carry you through any challenge. 13. Reflection is a superpower. Have you ever paused at the end of a long day and reflected on everything that happened? If you haven't, you might want to start. It's easy to get swept up in the busyness of life, to go from one task to the next, without taking a moment to step back and look at how you're responding to the world around you. But here's the truth. Reflection is a superpower. It's a tool that can help you understand yourself better, find clarity in chaos, and develop the wisdom to navigate life's challenges. This isn't just some self-help fluff. It's a practice that has been embraced by some of the greatest minds in history, including the Stoics. In our fast-paced world, it's easy to get distracted by all the noise around us. We're constantly bombarded with information, tasks, and demands, and it's tempting to just keep pushing through without stopping to think about how we're really doing. But without reflection, we miss out on the opportunity to learn from our experiences. We might keep making the same mistakes, repeating the same patterns, or living in a state of constant overwhelm without even realizing it. As Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." Reflection is about looking inward, understanding your reactions, your triggers, your motivations, and using that understanding to guide your future decisions. It's the key to self-mastery. The power of reflection lies in its ability to build self-awareness. When you take the time to reflect, you become more conscious of your thoughts and behaviors. This awareness allows you to identify areas where you can improve and take intentional steps to make better choices. When you're not reflecting, you're essentially on autopilot, letting life's circumstances dictate your mood and actions. But when you stop and reflect, you take back control. You become the observer of your own experience, rather than a passive participant in it. You start to notice how your mind works, how you react to different situations, and where you might be falling short in terms of your own values and goals. Reflection isn't just about self-criticism or pointing out your flaws. It's about understanding why you do what you do and how you can align your actions with your higher self. It's about cultivating a sense of inner peace and clarity. And journaling can be an incredibly powerful tool for this practice. Writing down your thoughts, feelings, and reflections allows you to externalize your internal world. You get to see your worries, doubts, and fears on paper, and in doing so, they lose some of their power over you. Journaling helps you process emotions, clarify your thoughts, and gain a sense of calm and control. As the Stoics knew, when you reflect on your day, you gain the ability to shape your responses to life rather than letting life shape you. What's amazing about reflection is that it gives you the space to pause, breathe, and put things into perspective. Let's face it, life is full of challenges. There are days when everything seems to go wrong, when you're overwhelmed, stressed, or frustrated. But when you take the time to reflect, you can gain clarity. You start to see that not everything is as urgent as it seems in the moment. You begin to recognize that many of the things you stress about are fleeting, that they don't define you, and that you have the ability to respond differently. It's like putting on a pair of glasses and seeing things more clearly. Reflection allows you to step outside of the chaos and view your experiences with a calm, objective mindset. Journaling plays a crucial role in this process. By writing down your thoughts, you give yourself the opportunity to work through them in a structured way. Instead of letting your emotions run wild, you create a space where you can process them thoughtfully. As you reflect on the day's events, you can identify patterns in your thinking and behavior. Maybe you notice that you get triggered by certain things, or that you tend to react impulsively in stressful situations. Journaling helps you catch these patterns and shift your mindset. It allows you to be intentional with your responses rather than just reacting without thinking. This is where true growth happens, when you become more mindful of your actions and actively choose to align them with your values and goals. The Stoics were masters of this kind of self-reflection. They didn't believe in merely thinking about their problems. They took time to actually examine their thoughts and feelings in order to understand themselves better. When we don't take the time to reflect on our experiences, we allow our imagination to run wild, creating exaggerated fears and worries. But when we stop and reflect, we can see that many of our anxieties are just stories we've told ourselves. Reflection helps us step back and challenge those thoughts. It helps us differentiate between what's real and what's imagined, and it gives us the clarity we need to move forward with confidence. Reflection isn't always easy. It requires honesty, vulnerability, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves. It can be difficult to acknowledge our flaws or admit when we've made mistakes. But this is where the real growth happens. When you're honest with yourself, when you take the time to really examine your actions and behaviors, you open the door to personal development. You begin to see where you're holding yourself back, where you're repeating the same patterns, and where you have the opportunity to do better. Reflection allows you to see these obstacles clearly, understand them, and turn them into lessons that propel you forward. Now, you might be wondering, how exactly can you start building this practice of reflection in your life? It's simple. Start small. You don't need to spend hours meditating or writing. Start by setting aside just 5 or 10 minutes at the end of each day to reflect. Ask yourself a few key questions. What did I think today? How did I feel? What did I do, and how did I respond to challenges? Be honest with yourself, but don't judge yourself harshly. The goal is not to criticize, but to understand. The more you do this, the more natural it will become. You'll start to notice patterns in your thinking and behavior. You'll begin to understand yourself more deeply, and you'll feel more at peace with who you are and where you're headed. Remember, reflection isn't just about looking back. It's about using the past to shape a better future. Every time you reflect on a mistake or a challenge, you're creating an opportunity to learn and improve. And with every lesson learned, you build a stronger, more resilient version of yourself. The Stoics knew that self-awareness was key to personal growth. By reflecting on their thoughts, feelings, and actions, they were able to align themselves with their values and live a life of purpose and meaning. And you can do the same. With consistent reflection, journaling, and self-awareness, you'll develop the inner calm and clarity that will help you navigate life's ups and downs with grace. Take the time to reflect. Start journaling. Ask yourself the tough questions. It's in these quiet moments of introspection that you'll uncover the power to live with more intention, more peace, and more confidence. Reflection is your superpower. It's the tool that allows you to take control of your life and shape it into something extraordinary. 14. The mind needs guidance, not suppression. The mind can be a wild thing, isn't it? It races from thought to thought, creating stories, building anxieties, and sometimes spiraling into confusion. Have you ever felt like your thoughts were out of control? Like your emotions were pulling you in every direction, making it hard to focus or feel at peace? It's a common experience, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the constant flow of thoughts and feelings. But here's the thing, the Stoics didn't believe in repressing or ignoring those emotions. Instead, they advocated for guiding them. They understood that our emotions, though powerful, don't need to be our masters. We don't have to suppress them, but we do need to steer them in a direction that serves us. It's like having a wild horse. You wouldn't just break the horse's spirit. Instead, you gently guide it in the right direction. And that's exactly what we need to do with our minds. The Stoics understood that the mind needs guidance, not suppression. Emotions are natural. They are a part of what it means to be human. We feel joy, sadness, anger, fear. These emotions are built into us. They're not something we can simply get rid of or push away. What we can do, however, is learn how to manage them. Think of your mind like a horse, as the Stoics might suggest. It's wild, powerful, and can take you places you might not want to go if left unchecked. If you just let the horse run free, it could cause chaos. But if you gently guide it, you can steer it towards something productive, even beautiful. This is how the Stoics saw emotions and thoughts. They weren't things to be afraid of, nor were they to be suppressed. They were to be understood, observed, and gently guided. When you allow yourself to become aware of your emotions without immediately reacting to them, you create a space for clarity and understanding. You start to see that your emotions don't define you. They are simply signals that can teach you about yourself, but they don't need to control you. If we let our emotions run unchecked, they control us, and we end up feeling like we're at the mercy of whatever comes our way. But when we take the time to understand our emotions, to observe them without judgment, we gain the power to direct them. We begin to see them for what they are, temporary feelings that don't need to dictate our actions. And this awareness gives us freedom. It gives us the ability to choose how to respond rather than simply reacting based on our emotions. So, how do we go about guiding the mind? The first step is awareness. The Stoics didn't believe in ignoring or repressing emotions. They believed in acknowledging them and observing them without being swept away by them. This is where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness isn't about stopping your thoughts or pretending you don't have emotions. It's about being present with what's happening in your mind without judgment. You notice when your thoughts start to spiral or when your emotions start to rise, but you don't immediately react. You just observe. This practice creates space between stimulus and reaction. Instead of reacting impulsively to what you're feeling, you can choose a more intentional response. Imagine you're facing a stressful situation, maybe a big presentation at work or an argument with a friend. It's natural to feel anxiety or frustration. In the past, you might have let those emotions control you. You might have become defensive, nervous, or angry. But now, with the guidance of Stoic principles, you can practice mindfulness. You can notice the anxiety creeping in and simply observe it without becoming overwhelmed by it. You can recognize, okay, I'm feeling anxious right now, but I don't have to act on it. I don't have to let it define me. I can choose a calm, thoughtful response. This is the power of awareness. It allows you to separate yourself from your emotions, and in doing so, you regain control. The Stoic philosophers knew that emotions, while powerful, are not inherently bad. They're a part of life. What matters is how we respond to them. If we let our emotions control us, we lose that power. But if we practice mindfulness and awareness, we can guide our emotions in a way that serves us. We can take that wild horse of the mind and gently direct it toward peace and clarity. Jung's ideas also align with this approach. He believed that self-awareness is the key to personal growth. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, he said. And becoming who you truly are involves understanding your mind, the way you think, feel, and react. It's about bringing the unconscious to the surface so that you can consciously guide your actions. When you understand your emotional patterns and the ways your mind works, you gain the ability to steer your life in the direction you want it to go. You don't let your emotions control you. Instead, you take the reins and guide them in a way that aligns with your values and goals. One of the most powerful things about this Stoic approach to emotions is that it helps you develop resilience. Life isn't always going to be easy. There will be times when you're faced with difficult emotions, when you feel overwhelmed, angry, or frustrated. But when you practice mindfulness and learn to guide your mind, you build the resilience to handle whatever comes your way. Instead of being swept away by your emotions, you learn to meet them with calm, clarity, and purpose. This makes you less reactive and more thoughtful in your responses, and over time, it builds your inner strength. As if you allow your thoughts to run wild, they can shape a reality that feels chaotic and uncontrollable. But if you guide your thoughts with mindfulness and intention, you can shape a reality that is peaceful and under control. So, how do you start practicing this gentle guidance of the mind? It begins with self-awareness. Take a moment each day to check in with yourself. Notice what you're thinking and feeling without judgment. Ask yourself, what's going on inside my mind right now? What emotions am I feeling and why? The more you practice this awareness, the easier it becomes to catch your emotions before they spiral out of control. And when you do notice those emotions, don't try to suppress them. Just acknowledge them, observe them, allow them to be there without becoming overwhelmed by them. Then, you can decide how to respond in a way that aligns with your values and goals. As you continue to practice this mindfulness, you'll begin to notice a shift. You'll become more aware of your emotional patterns and reactions. You'll start to see where you tend to react impulsively and where you can choose a more intentional response. This shift in awareness is the first step toward mastering your mind. It's the beginning of guiding your thoughts rather than being controlled by them. And over time, you'll find that you have more control over your emotions, your actions, and ultimately, your life. The Stoics understood that emotions are a part of being human. They didn't try to eliminate them or suppress them. They knew that, just like a wild horse, our emotions can be powerful and unruly. But with practice, we can guide them. We can direct them in a way that serves us rather than letting them control us. This practice of mindfulness and self-awareness is not just a tool for managing emotions. It's a tool for living a life of intention, clarity, and peace. When you learn to guide your mind, you unlock your full potential. You become more resilient, more present, and more in control of your own life. 15. Mastery is a process, not a destination. We all want to be in control of our lives, don't we? To have a sense of calm and clarity no matter what life throws at us. It's easy to look at someone who seems completely collected, someone who handles stress effortlessly, and think that they've got it all figured out. They've reached a destination, right? The truth is, mastery isn't a final destination. It's a process. The Stoics, those ancient philosophers who had a knack for wisdom, would agree. They didn't promise peace overnight. They didn't claim that one day everything would suddenly fall into place. Instead, they taught that calm, clarity, and emotional mastery are earned through consistent practice over time. It's about the small, daily steps, not some magical moment of arrival. It's the practice, not the perfection, that builds lasting peace. The Stoics didn't expect perfection from themselves, and they certainly didn't expect it from us. They knew that true mastery doesn't come from doing everything right all at once. Instead, it's about improving gradually, one step at a time. It's about cultivating habits that reinforce peace and balance. It's not about avoiding challenges or reaching some perfect state of emotional equilibrium. It's about how you respond to the challenges that inevitably come your way. Each reaction you choose, each time you catch yourself before you react impulsively, is a small victory. And when you string enough small victories together, you begin to experience mastery, not as a static goal, but as an ongoing process. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that peace is something we'll achieve once everything in our lives is perfect. That if we could just get the job we want, fix our relationships, or get the perfect routine, everything would finally fall into place. But the Stoics taught that external conditions don't define our inner peace. True peace comes from the inside. It's the ability to manage your thoughts, your feelings, and your reactions, no matter the chaos happening around you. So much of our stress comes from imagining the worst-case scenario, from ruminating on what could go wrong. But when we step back and practice reflection, like the Stoics did, we begin to see that the majority of our worries never come to pass. Peace is built through a practice of being present and not letting the mind run wild. It's about training the mind to stay grounded, even when things get tough. And that takes time. We often think of mastery in terms of getting it right. We imagine that if we practice something enough, we'll reach perfection, and at that moment, everything will click. But this idea of perfect mastery can be paralyzing. It can make us feel like we're never good enough, always striving for something that's just out of reach. But the Stoic perspective is different. They didn't believe in chasing perfection. They believed in the pursuit of virtue and progress, no matter how small the steps might be. Perfection was never the goal. Consistency was. Wisdom and mastery are earned by practicing the right habits over time. It's in the repetition of these small actions that we build our strength and character. Mastery isn't about being perfect. It's about being persistent, accepting that you will stumble along the way. But those stumbles, those moments where you fall short, are just as important as the moments when you succeed. Each mistake is an opportunity to learn, to adjust, and to grow. The process of mastery is one of continuous evolution, not a point of arrival. When you can embrace that, you free yourself from the pressure of being perfect and focus on being consistent. Think about any skill you've learned, whether it's a sport, a craft, or a profession. At first, it felt impossible. You probably made mistakes, maybe you even failed. But as you practiced over time, it got easier. You learned from your mistakes, you adjusted, and you kept going. You didn't give up because you weren't perfect right away. You understood that mastery was a journey, not a destination. The same applies to emotional mastery. You can't expect yourself to have it all figured out from the beginning. You will have moments of doubt, moments when your emotions get the best of you, but that's all part of the process. What matters is that you keep showing up, keep practicing, and keep striving for progress. The Stoics knew this well. They didn't expect perfection, and they didn't demand it from themselves. What they valued was the effort, the continuous striving to be better, no matter how small the steps. Every obstacle you face isn't something to avoid or lament. It's an opportunity to learn, grow, and keep moving forward. Your challenges, your setbacks, are part of your mastery. Each time you meet them with resilience and thoughtful action, you're building your strength. Mastery comes not from eliminating obstacles, but from learning how to navigate them. One of the most powerful ideas the Stoics teach is that peace isn't something that happens in one moment. It's not about waiting for life to calm down or for everything to fall into place. Peace is a byproduct of practice. It's something you build through daily effort. And this process is what leads to true mastery. It's not about waiting for everything to be perfect. It's about showing up every day, putting in the work, and trusting that over time, you'll get better. It's about embracing the journey, not the destination. The beauty of this process is that there's no end point. You don't reach mastery and then stop. Mastery is something you continue to work on, to refine, and to improve. It's not a place you arrive at. It's a state of being that you cultivate through consistent practice. It's a lifelong process, and that's what makes it so fulfilling. As you continue to practice mindfulness, reflection, and emotional control, you build a foundation of inner peace that allows you to navigate life's ups and downs with grace. You learn to weather the storms without being overwhelmed and to enjoy the calm when it comes. This process of mastery isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, persistent, and willing to grow. If you're feeling frustrated because you haven't reached some ideal version of peace or mastery yet, take a deep breath and remind yourself that this is the journey. It's okay not to have it all figured out. What matters is that you keep going, that you continue to practice, and that you stay focused on progress rather than perfection. The Stoics would tell you that you're already on the right path. Mastery is a process, not a destination, and every small step you take along the way is a victory in itself. Remember, true mastery is a journey, not a destination. Every small step you take, every moment you choose to grow, is a victory in itself. So keep moving forward and trust that with every day you're building a stronger, calmer, and more resilient version of yourself. Thank you for being a part of Stoic Journal. Your commitment to growth is inspiring.